I'm Mike. This is Mike on Media. Today I'm taking a look at the Fantastic Four First Steps. Released in July of 2025, the Fantastic Four First Steps was directed by Matt Shakman, a former child star turned director who is most well known for directing WandaVision on the Disney Plus network. Interestingly, WandaVision was the first television series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, the Fantastic Four have a rich history in the world of comic books. It was originally created by the legendary team of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby all the way back in 1961. In fact, the success of the Fantastic Four turned around the then struggling Marvel and directly enabled the creation of subsequent comic book superheroes, including Spider-Man, Iron Man, the X-Men, and the Hulk. Additionally, the Fantastic Four have had an undeniable impact on a number of future creative endeavors, including The Incredibles, which is a family of superheroes with numerous parallels to the Fantastic Four. But despite all of this, previous attempts to bring the Fantastic Four to the big screen resulted in a collection of, shall we say, less than impressive movies. In particular, there was a low-budget so-called B movie that was scheduled to be released in 1994, and although it was completed, was never released. There was also 2005's unimaginatively named Fantastic Four, followed by its sequel in 2007, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, and finally in 2015, there was a reboot, again just named Fantastic Four. Collectively, the three movies that were released performed poorly, earning an average IMDb rating of just 5.2 out of 10. This makes the Fantastic Four First Steps the second reboot, or the third retelling of this classic superhero team. So, is the third time a charm? Let's find out. First off, the story takes place on Earth 828. This is a particular parallel universe in the Marvel timeline. It's been described as retro-futuristic, which basically means it's like our 1960s with some limited amount of future technology. Now, as an interesting side note, the 828 comes from the birthday of co-creator Jack Kirby, who was born on August 28th. If you're not familiar with the members of the Fantastic Four, they are led by Mr. Fantastic, otherwise known as Richard Reed. He is sort of this naturally brilliant scientist, and then he also has the superpower of stretchiness. Mr. Fantastic is played by Pedro Pascal, who's well known for Game of Thrones, The Mandalorian, and the series The Last of Us. Now, Mr. Fantastic is married to the Invisible Woman, also known as Sue Storm. She has the superpower of being able to create these really powerful force fields, as well as to, not surprisingly, turn herself invisible. Sue is played by Vanessa Kirby, who's been in 2 Mission Impossible movies and also an installment of The Fast and the Furious. Sue's younger brother, Johnny Storm, is the superhero, the Human Torch. He's capable of sort of combusting at will into fire, and he also has the ability to fly. Johnny's played by Joseph Quinn of Stranger Things fame. And finally, there's Ben Grimm, who is the Thing. He's the one member of the Fantastic Four who can't really hide his superpower because he has a rock-like body that gives him superhuman strength. The Thing is played by Ebon Moss-Bachrach, and he's well known for the series The Bear on FX. The movie begins 4 years after the Fantastic Four have been on the scene. They provide sort of a backstory montage so the audience understands who the characters are and where they came from. And soon after that, the Silver Surfer arrives. This is an alien who informs the Earth that it's been targeted for destruction and in a short amount of time will cease to exist. And now, as it turns out, the Silver Surfer is actually a messenger, a so-called herald for Galactus. In the words of the director, Galactus is a 14 billion year old planet devouring cosmic vampire. So, with this setup, the Fantastic Four do battle against the Silver Surfer and Galactus and time in a struggle to save the Earth and all of its inhabitants. And in the middle of all that, the Invisible Woman gives birth to a baby boy named Franklin, who ends up playing a pivotal role in the story. The whole idea of parallel universes in the Marvel timeline is a little bit clunky at the top level, but it's a very good storytelling device in that it allows the individual movies to be completely isolated in terms of superheroes and related plot lines. In the world Earth 828, the Fantastic Four are the only superheroes in the universe. Contrast this with the DC universe, where in the recent Superman movie, writer-director James Gunn, I would argue, sort of modified the Superman story and then introduced other superheroes so that he can reboot the DC universe. And when you look at that and compare it to this, you can see the value of Marvel doing it this way. It's very clean and it's very organized. And in my opinion, it's much better. Now, although I haven't seen the earlier Fantastic Four movies, from what I have seen, it's clear that the creators of those movies were trying to sort of modernize the Fantastic Four. Whereas the writers with First Steps, because of the fact that it's on World 828 and because they have their retro-futurism, they were actually able to stay truer to the comic book roots of the Fantastic Four. And in my opinion, this worked out very well. It gives the movie a very interesting style. I like it quite a bit. Now, apparently the Galactus storyline is one of the most well-known and one of the most well-liked storylines from the entire Fantastic Four world. But it's not the first in the chronology, which is why the 2005 movie didn't get to that story until the sequel in 2007. The decision of the writers for First Steps to kind of fast forward to the Galactus storyline, I thought was a very good decision because it allowed them to start with the strongest story in the initial version of the reboot and not to get bogged down with chronology. Also, the handling of the backstory and the montage, that all worked fine. It worked perfectly well. Now, of note, the Silver Surfer character in this incarnation of the story is a woman, whereas in the comic books and also the 2007 movie, the Silver Surfer was a man. I like this change. It was kind of interesting and good. Before seeing this movie, I didn't realize how much Franklin, the baby, was sort of a critical part of the story. And because of that, I didn't catch the duality of the title, First Steps, which is clearly intended to sort of suggest a first entry into the reboot, as well as be a reference to Franklin. Some of the cinematography and graphics are very cool. In particular, the Silver Surfer and especially Galactus are very well done. This is an area where the imagery is comic book-like, in that you can watch the movie and then very easily sort of visualize what the comics looked like. In general, it's good. I liked it. And it's also an area that is different than the 2007 version of the movie, which apparently sort of strayed from the comic books in its depiction of Galactus. There's a small amount of humor in First Steps. It's underwhelming. It's not really bad. It's just underwhelming and sometimes a little bit silly. I would also suggest that some of the story development in terms of what's said and how people react to what's said is unrealistic. Now, I know some people are probably going to say, hey, Mike, This is a story with 4 superheroes and a planet-eating bad guy. How much realism did you really expect? And I get that, but I would argue that it matters. In these types of movies, there are the things that you just have to accept, and then there are things that we're more familiar with. And if those aren't done well, then it can actually take you out of the moment. And I feel like that's happening a little bit with this story. And finally, I'd like to mention a fun fact, which is that the 1994 version of the movie, the actors who played the Fantastic Four in that version were actually in this movie in a cameo appearance. There's an article about it. I'll link to it in the description. Director Matt Shakman and company have made a lot of really good decisions with this movie and created a genuinely likable version of the Fantastic Four. Now, even though I haven't seen the earlier Fantastic Four movies, it's clear that this version is far superior to those other movies. Having said that, I think there's a reason why the Fantastic Four are lesser known than a lot of the other more popular superheroes. To me, this movie feels like a very good adaptation of a slightly above average comic book story. In terms of a rating, I give it 3 out of 5 stars. If you're a comic book fan or an MCU fan, or you just like the Fantastic Four, go ahead and watch this movie. Even if you're just desperate for a decent movie, go ahead and watch it. Otherwise, I would wait until you can't find anything better. As always, thanks for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. Here's another video from the channel I think you'll like. This has been Mike on Media. Until next time.